My fellow Guardians, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another Planet Destiny raid guide. This is Sly from SlyNation here on YouTube, and it's time to walk you through the latest Destiny raid, the Deepstone Crypt. This raid has its up and downs. Post-contest mode, it's actually one of the easier raids Destiny has produced. However, it is quite mechanic heavy. It has a Spire of Stars and Wrath of the Machine kind of vibe all mixed up into one. It's just the right length, however. It's fun and has one of the most stunning level designs in Destiny. Not to mention, the lore attached to it is great as well. So in this video, we're going to go over everything that you need to know in order to beat every encounter within this raid. We'll talk about teams, loadouts, mods, subclasses, and then mechanics. At each stage along the way, we'll then set everything into motion and go over everything in as much detail as possible. So before we begin though, just a quick disclaimer. This raid is only a few days old at the time of making this guide. So while the mechanics of these fights will not change, how you deal with them could. Weapons or loadouts, boss DPS, timings, etc. But no matter what happens, once the meta is solidified, these guides will teach you everything that you need to know. Alright, so with that, let's get this bad boy started. We're doing things a little different this year, and you'll find here on your screen the timestamps for each encounter within the Deepstone Crypt raid. Now, feel free to watch this entire thing, or skip to the encounter that you need to learn. So instead of tracking down different guides, here's all of them at your convenience. Okay, so make your way inside the raid, drive your way through the snow and into Crypt security. The first encounter is a very relaxed style encounter, and it's great because this sets the standard for everything from here on out. It's a fantastic place to teach you how to use Operator and the scanner augments, along with the transfer mechanic as well. I highly recommend letting everyone on your team, at least in some point in time, switch throughout the various jobs, because everything from here on out will build upon the basic knowledge that's taught at this encounter. So with that, let's get this bad boy started. First, team loadout. You can really be whatever you wish for this encounter. Stasis is very nice, simply for ad control, and having a Warlock well for damage is also great. But besides that, run whatever character and whichever class you wish. Hunters, Stasis, Tether, and Nighthawk Golden Gun, all viable options. Even though you won't really make the best use of Nighthawk here, being able to do precise damage with a super is something that you can definitely use. Warlocks have a well on each side when it comes time for damage. It helps out in more ways than one, but definitely not necessary. And Titans, Stasis, or Bubble, which will be the case pretty much the entire time throughout this raid. As for loadouts, there are a few different ways you can go here. Hand cannons or scout rifles, spec'd with overload mod for champions at spawn, but totally up to you as you can kill these guys with a sword without stunning them. Risk Runner, also a very useful tool here as you don't have to reload while taking arc damage. So if you wish to use an arc super, then throw a grenade at your feet when it comes time for damage, that is a very viable alternative. This way you can use a sword for the captains. However, you'll see me with Xenophage and a grenade launcher. As for mods, arc damage reduction, protective light, and grenade launcher reload mod worked for me, but tailor it to your own loadout on whatever weapons you're comfortable with. Again, Risk Runner and sword, a great option. Now let's go over the map. So you're going to be splitting up into two teams of three. You'll have 3 left and 3 right. Now I call this light room and dark room. Others call it server room and tubes, but totally up to you. From this fight forward, you're going to have to start using these buffs called augments. Now there are 2 of them at least for now. Scanner augment and the operator augment. You have the scanner augment, which is yellow, the operator augment, which is red. Now they do exactly as they are named. Scanner will scan various items that need interacting with. They show the designated scanner player which items needs to be called out. Scanner augments will always highlight items in a bright yellow. Operator, the second augment in this raid, is the red buff, and as the name suggests, it allows you to operate things. Around this room and various rooms throughout this raid, there will be these CPU or microchip looking things. I call them keypads. They're immune when you shoot them, and only the operator will be able to damage them. You know which one to damage because the player who picks up the scanner buff will see which ones to shoot and then call them out to the operator. So that means you're going to have to learn a new call out system. Keypads right next to doors, usually simply open them. However, downstairs, which you can access at the back of the room, there will be additional keypads to operate more doors that lead downstairs. Now, once you get downstairs, there are going to be 5 keypads on the dark side and 5 keypads on the light side. Once the encounter begins, the doors in between light and dark will close, so that means you're going to have to start passing these augments around. Throughout this entire raid, you're going to see these machines that you see here. I call them transfer machines. This is how you can move the various buffs or augments around the different encounters. There's one transfer machine on the dark side, one on the light side, and then one downstairs. Next, on each side, light room and dark room, notice the glass panels on the floor. Now, through these panels, you'll be able to see the keypads. When the encounter begins, and we'll set things into motion coming up next, you're going to have to identify the 2 highlighted keypads on light, then call it out to the operator. Once you do, send over the scanner buff to the next room via the transfer machine, and then someone picks it up on the light side. Once they grab it, they're going to have to identify the 2 on light. If you do not call them out fast enough and the operator doesn't shoot them in time, it'll burn the operator alive downstairs. Now, eventually, if you take too long and wipe too many times, it's going to wipe the entire team. As for keypad callouts, my team and I use the following. The room that leads downstairs is what we call the back of the room. Rally flag area is the front. So on dark side, we use the 1 through 5 system, with 1 being the frontmost keypad and 5 of course being the backmost. The same goes for the light side. Very front of the room is 1, very back closest to the stairs is 5. Now for example, the very first glass panel, you can see 2 of them. So be sure to check both. On the light side, there are going to be 2 next to each other, so you and your team are going to have to come up with a system to identify which is 1 and which is 2. The rest, though, are pretty self-explanatory. Alright, Guardians, so now let's take what we've learned and set it all into motion. So break up into your 2 teams, 3 on dark, 3 on light. Go ahead and start the encounter by having a person on the light side grab the operator buff from the transfer machine. Once the encounter officially begins, ads will start pouring out and the scanner augment will be carried out by a hacker vandal on the left hand side, or sorry, it'll be the dark side. Scanner starts out on dark, operator will always pick it up on light. So designate 2 players, 1 on each side, who's going to be calling out and using scanner. Also, since 1 player on light side is always designated operator, that means they're going to be down a man on the light side, so just be aware of that. And also, be careful downstairs, as they have their own sets of ads that spawn in and they're going to have to deal with them. Mostly invisible pokey stick guys. Now, throughout this raid, servitors called Sentinels will be coming out. They block the ability to use the transfer machines. Once the last servitor's been dealt with, that's when the timing in this encounter begins. So pick up the scanner augment and then immediately start looking through the glass panels on the dark side. Call out the 2 keypads highlighted in yellow, and then you immediately want to send the scanner augment over via the machine. Now, the light side of the room is going to have to do the same. The person designated scanner is going to have to pick it up from the transfer machine, walk over to their glass panels, and start looking for their keypads. Once you find them, you tell the operator who is downstairs. They take care of them simply by shooting the keypad. Once the operator shoots the 2 keypads on left and then finally the 2 on right, the tubes in the middle of the room will expose themselves and it is now time for damage. To tell which tube needs to be shot as a team, operator will now need to become scanner. So the operator, who is still downstairs, will need to send up operator buff via the machine. Someone then picks it up and the player with scanner will insert it into the machine so the operator can now become scanner and call out which tube needs to be damaged. Unfortunately, I don't have a viewpoint of this, but it's pretty easy. Just look for the one that's glowing. It'll be one of these at a time and that'll correlate with the tubes upstairs. So again, for callouts, we use the front to back 1, 2, 3 system. Operator will say shooting light side 2, which means the middle tube on the light side of the room, because looking at the tube, left to right, you have 1, 2, 3. So the middle one's 2, left is 1, right is 3. Once that one pops, it'll be time for the next tube. So once again, operator looks at which fuse it is downstairs and simply calls it out. The next, for example, if it's dark side 1, then that means it's going to be the very left tube on the dark side. Of course, you can always use middle, left, right if you wish. Again, totally up to you and your team. That's just what we used. After you pop all 6 tubes, congrats my friend, the first encounter is done, and now we are off to the contest mode wall Atrax. The first encounter sets the tone for just about everything afterwards, so make sure you understand the various roles and how they work, because you're going to need to know these things for the other encounters from here on out, because after this, things start piling on top of this basic knowledge. But that's about it, Guardians. Collect loot and win it life. I hope Crypt Security dropped you something awesome, because now we're on to, at least in my opinion, the hardest fight within this raid, Atrax. Now, even though this is the toughest one in this raid, it doesn't make it a hard fight, as it's all about timing. You nail the timing as a team, then this encounter becomes cake. For this encounter, I'd recommend Stasis for just about all classes, or for Warlocks, good old-fashioned Welllock or Devour, both work. Hunters, Tethers with Orpheus rigs works the best, but all subclasses are viable here. Titans, stick with Stasis. That Titan slide and freeze effect is just too damn good, and the added weapon damage from the fragment is pretty hard to beat as well. So be sure to have your fragment that gives you the extra damage when freezing an enemy, and I would use the tracking cryo grenades for this fight as well because there are a lot of Heidi adds. On your armor, equip Lucent Blade with stacks on stacks or supercharged. If you need help staying alive, Protective Light is just so damn good and it will help you stay alive long enough to get to safety. Spec for recovery and class abilities. If you can squeeze on the mod which gives you grenade energy when using a grenade, and class ability usage grants more class ability energy or grants grenade energy, both of those are great to use, but Protective Light and Lucent Blade should be priority. If nothing else, Protective Light and the mod that grants light charge from picking up orbs of power. Those two over the rest. But if you can squeeze on the chest mod that grants you extra arc damage reduction, that's also going to help out tremendously as well. As for weapons, there are a few different ways you can go here, but this is what worked very well for my team and I. Again, what you see here is contest mode, so things may change. You want to use the guillotine sword for heavy, truth teller with major spec for special, and I went with a scout rifle or hand cannon for primary. However, you can use xenophage as a heavy if you wish. However, you will run into ammo problems later on in the fight, usually when you need it most. Be sure to have a primary or special that is masterworked so you can create orbs for yourself. This is crucial as you want to keep your Lucent Blade and Protective Light available when you need it most. Risk Runner, also a very good option here if you're using a sword. Everything shoots arc besides the servitors, so that's going to be pretty advantageous, especially since adds hide so much here. You can get them around corners with that tracking arc damage. Now, let's go ahead and learn the map, the mechanics, and then we'll set things into motion after that. So there are two levels for this encounter. We're going to call them upstairs and downstairs. Each level has a top and a bottom area to them. So you have top and bottom upstairs, top and bottom downstairs. To get to the upstairs area, there are rocket elevator pods located in the front of the room. Simply interact with them, which is E on keyboard, and I think square on PlayStation, X on Xbox. This will rocket you up to space and into a space station. Fairly simple, and we'll get to that next. For the bottom level room, again, there is a bottom area and a top area. From the back room where you entered, you're going to start out on the top of the lower level. So run around and acquaint yourself with the layout. Add spawn to the left and right of the rocket pods, which I'll just call pods from now on, and left and right walls. Bosses will be located in specific areas down here as well as up top. There's a boss on the right, which always stays there. Then there's a boss directly in the middle, right next to the pods. And finally, two bosses on the left, a lower left and a top left. These bosses will always stay close to those areas. Now, they might move a little bit, but nothing you can't figure out. You can either number them 1 through 4, left to right, with number 1 being the top left boss and number 4 being the far right boss, or you can just simply call them, top left, bottom left, middle, and right. Completely up to you, but number 1 through 4 causes less confusion for those who are new to this fight. Next, know where the augment transfer machines are located. Now, you'll find the augment transfer machines on the lower left, lower middle, and upper right sides of the downstairs area. Taking the pod upstairs, you have a similar layout, but everything is wide open, which means ads can get you from all directions, but that also means things are easily visible up here. However, there are a couple of differences to take note of. First, there are airlocks upstairs, and you're going to have to use them. Some of these airlocks, however, only work as spawn points for the ads. The ones we need to worry about are the two immediate ones on your left. Coming out of the pod, it'll be on your top left, and right below that on the bottom left. And then on the right side, you'll have the one immediately on the bottom right. However, the top one is really the middle on that top level. The best way to label these guys is simply left and right, top and bottom. But just remember that the right side top is actually the middle one. You can see the transfer machines from all points in this room fairly easily. The boss placement up top is kind of odd, however. They're kind of like on all sides around you. You have the front, back, left, and right. Work with your team to call out placements in whichever way suits your team. Again, if the pods can be considered a starting point, The boss closest to pods is number 1. Then label them 2, 3, 4 going clockwise. I didn't spend a lot of time upstairs, so unfortunately I don't have the best viewpoints recorded. However, the top and bottom are pretty similar in terms of the main mechanic. Alright Guardians, so with the walkthrough done, now let's talk about those mechanics. Just like in the first encounter, you're going to be dealing with the yellow and red augments. Yellow is the scanner buff, red is the operator buff. I don't know why I call them buffs, I just do. The names tell you pretty much what they do. Operator means you can operate and engage with something. Scanner means that it scans an item of interest. For this encounter, operator buff has 2 jobs. Number 1, they have to open the airlocks on the upper level by shooting the same computer chip looking thing on the wall as the first encounter, which I'll call keypads from now on. And they have to shoot something else, which we'll talk about next. Operator also has to send down the rocket pods by shooting the keypads as well. Once everyone is in place, immediately send 3 pods downstairs just to get that over and done with. Next, let's talk about Scanner. Now, Scanner has the important job of using the buff to identify which bosses are to be damaged and in which order. Scanners have to be fast and they have to juggle quite a bit here, but so does the Operator. Scanners will have to look around at the bosses individually and then keep an eye out for the yellow pixelated glow that surrounds the boss that needs to be damaged. Only the boss identified in yellow should be damaged. Damage the wrong one and it's going to be a team wipe. The big difference between Scanner and Operator, at least for this fight, is that once Operator gets the buff, they keep it for the duration of the encounter. Scanners have to juggle it by sending it via the transfer machines at every damage phase. You only have 1 scanner buff, but 2 players need to use it. Designate which 2 players will be taking the scanner buff and know where the closest transfer machines are located in each area. Moving over to the operator side, again, they have to open the airlocks by shooting the keypads. The reason why is because once you down a boss, they're going to drop what I simply called, a soul orb. Or whatever you want to call it, we'll just call it an orb. It's a debuff that counts down as soon as it drops, and the only way to reset it is for the operator to shoot it off of a player that picked it up. You do this by shooting the purple orb above the player's head. Again, only the operator can do this. Once the debuff is shot off, the orb will fall to the ground again and the time resets just like it did after boss damage. It can then be picked back up with the timer restarted. This is absolutely crucial. However, the only way to really get rid of it instead of just keep resetting it is to space it out the airlock. For the first few weeks until everyone learns this boss fight, it's best to try and have 1 person designated as the orb runner for each team. They will always try and grab the orb after the boss is down and then bring it to the airlock. 1 player does this for the upstairs, and of course 1 player does this for the downstairs. The scanner, and especially the operator, should stay away from grabbing this orb. While it is possible for the scanner to do it, it adds in an extra layer of difficulty that really isn't needed. If scanner accidentally picks it up after boss damage, don't freak out, simply transfer the scanner back to the machine and then head to the airlock ASAP. You do have enough time, but you're going to be squeezing it. If the operator grabs the orb, they cannot shoot it off of themselves, maybe with ricochet rounds, but that's for a different video. So if that happens, they're kind of screwed. So in short, scanner identifies which boss to damage. Once it's dead, the boss will drop a debuff orb that counts down from 40 seconds. Once it hits 0, it kills the player. However, if the orb is left on the ground, it will wipe the entire team. So once boss is identified, call it out, collapse as a team, and then take out the boss. 1 player will grab the debuff, head to the airlock which the operator opens, you head inside, stop moving for a few seconds so the operator can get a clean shot to get it off of you, you leave it on the ground, get out of the airlock, and then it's spaced, simply rinse and repeat. Again, damage the wrong boss and it's a wipe. Fail to space the debuff and it's a wipe. If you are carrying the debuff and the timer hits 0, it will only kill the user who picked it up. But if left alone, it kills the entire team. Now, one thing to note here is that while the debuff orb will reset its time when shot off the player, it starts to count down immediately once it hits the ground. That's when it falls off of a boss or off of a guardian, it doesn't matter. So these are priority. Now, even though you have 40 seconds, which is a decent amount of time, if you can't find it for 10 seconds because it was blasted off into a corner, you only have 30 seconds left to get it out the airlock or have it shot off by the operator. And since the downstairs team has to take the rocket pod, I think the rocket pod takes between 9 and 11 seconds. I can't exactly remember, but that's even less time. It helps to have designated people taking these orbs up and spacing it, at least in these early weeks, as they will know exactly how to handle it and where to go every single time. As with the other encounter, the operator and scanner augments will first come in by way of vandals. Operator appears downstairs at first, scanner appears upstairs, and they can appear anywhere ad spawn. That's left, right, center, top, and bottom. So be sure to keep a lookout and call it out when you see it. Try not to kill the vandal with the scanner or operator buff close to a boss, because once it drops, you're going to have to pick it up, and the stomp mechanic hurts and usually will kill you. Alright Guardian, so with that info out of the way, let's set all of this into motion. This encounter requires splitting up into 2 teams of 3, a downstairs team and an upstairs team. To start it off, have the 3 going upstairs hide by the pods as it begins. This way they can take the pods up immediately once they grab the purple orb to kick it off. Warlock Rift helps a lot here. I was on the downstairs team and I was responsible for scanner, so that's where my viewpoint lies, and I was responsible for the left side of this room. The left side has 2 bosses to worry about. It's definitely the harder side to deal with. Middle is frustrating because you have a long distance between you and the ads and they love to hide, so scouts work very, very well here. Also, when ads start to spawn, take them out with scouts or truth teller the instant you see them. Try to burn them down as they are grouped up. Shanks will also spawn, so keep a lookout for them, and be sure to watch for vandals carrying the scanner or operator buffs. If you kill one of them and the buff goes away, don't freak out, they will reappear. The bosses here can wrap their shots pretty much around pillars and corners, so constantly be on the move or have a good place to hide while taking out ads. Enemies constantly spawn no matter how many you take out, so try to take out as many as possible anytime you are able, whether it's on your side or not. So once it starts, the first couple of enemy wave comes out, take them out. Once they are down, a new wave will then spawn. This time, however, with servitors. Again, you'll see at the bottom of your screen that sentinels are blocking out access, just like in the first encounter. This means that the augment transfer machines are not up and running, which means you cannot send the buff. The servitors are blocking them. The good thing is that you have plenty of time here. Of course, the faster the better, but don't rush it. Servitors spawn upstairs first and then downstairs second. Keep 1 servitor alive out of the 3 and help any side that needs it. Once all the enemies and servitors are down, go ahead and kill the final one, and then everything really gets started. Once everything's good to go and both the scanner and operator buffs have been picked up, that's when you want to kill the final servitor. This starts the official damage round. Keeping these servitors alive helps things out tremendously, so I definitely recommend it. As soon as the transfer machines are available, put the operator augment into the machine as soon as you can. Anyone can do this, and again, the operator buff spawns in downstairs. However, you need to send it upstairs because that's where the airlocks are. The upstairs team is currently using the scanner at this time to identify their boss because they have damage first. It's easiest to designate 1 person to use and keep the operator buff the entire time, while the same goes for scanners. Have 1 person on the upstairs team be designated and 1 person on the downstairs team. Once the upstairs team damages the correct boss, the designated operator upstairs grabs the operator augment to free up the machine while the scanner holder inserts the scanner buff into the transfer machine. The 3rd player upstairs will then grab the orb that the boss dropped. You have to juggle the scanner augment between the 2 levels. As soon as you're done damaging the boss, immediately insert the scanner into the transfer machine and then deal with spacing the orb. Like I mentioned, upstairs gets first damage. Once you hear the audible scream, that means the boss has been stunned and it's time to swap. Whoever the scanner user is on the downstairs team needs to be at the middle station awaiting to pick it up immediately. Once it's there, grab it and then hop up towards the middle boss. There's kind of a gap in the floor above you. This lets you go up and down on your level with ease. Now, even though there are windows, it takes practice here, guys. The ideal spot I like to use was a spot located between left and middle. This way I could see, well, mostly, 3 of the 4 bosses. If it wasn't one of those 3, then of course that only leaves the right side boss. So get to this spot with the scanner buff as soon as possible. Use Titan Barricade or Rift to stay alive. Keep an eye on a boss and you'll notice that it starts to wind up into a set animation. A few seconds before this animation happens, one of the 4 bosses will have this kind of pixelated yellow glow, and that's going to be your signal. Try to identify that as early as possible and call out which boss it is. For instance, you can number them 1 through 4 left to right, or simply top left, bottom left, middle, and right. Either way works, but 1 through 4 is usually the easiest. The earlier you identify your boss, the better it is, because this lets you and your team get into position. Now, do not jump the gun here, guys. You have a decent amount of time to do damage if you timed everything correctly. So what you want to do is identify your boss, call it out, and then wait for your teammates to get close. Once they are, count it down, 3, 2, 1, and then everyone do damage. It looks like 3 quick attacks with the sword followed by 1 or 2 heavy attacks is your go-to combo for the best sword damage. Now, even though the boss will leave, you can still damage that soul orb for a second or two afterwards. So don't stop swinging until you see the numbers go away. Also, throw a stasis grenade down before you start doing damage because, of course, you get an extra damage boost for freezing an enemy with that fragment. Again, you can find that on one of the fragments you put into your aspects. Once the boss is down, the scanner user then needs to deposit the scanner buff back into the transfer machine immediately, because now the upstairs team has to do damage to their second boss. Now, one of the downfalls about swords, because of the proximity to the boss when using it, you can never really tell who's going to accidentally grab the orb. All it takes for you is to just accidentally touch it and it clings to you. It works best to designate one guardian who will always collect it, but either way, whoever gets it, do not panic. If the scanner user gets it, simply run down, deposit the scanner, and then book it towards the pods. Get inside, be sure to keep an eye on the countdown, and the best way to avoid grabbing it altogether is just simply do 2 to 3 light attacks with the sword, 1 heavy attack, and then back up. Simply use your primary or truth teller grenade launcher from a distance for a little extra added damage. This makes sure you don't grab the orb. Okay, so with the first boss down and the orb in tow, you now have to space it. So if you're on the downstairs team, you want to head to the rocket pod and be careful of the remaining bosses, as they are now out of their animation and will stomp you if you get too close. So hop into the rocket pod, and as you are on the way up, ask the operator upstairs which door or airlock you need to deposit the orb in. It doesn't really matter which airlock they want to use, but to make things simpler for the upstairs team, you want to take your orb to the operator. So you're going to use the airlock closest to wherever they are at. If your countdown is low, tell the operator to shoot it off of you as soon as you exit the pod. But if you do everything correctly, you should have enough time. Anyways, once you have the orb and you know which airlock to go to, all you have to do is run inside the airlock, stand still for a split second, let the operator shoot it off of you, causing it to drop on the floor. You then run out the airlock, operator closes the door, the orb gets spaced. That is 1 cycle. This happens 3 times for the upstairs team, 3 times for the downstairs team. Now, the good thing about being on the upstairs team is that you don't have to take the pods back down. Once you space it, you're already back to where you need to be. Now, the reason why it's best that the scanner not pick up the orb is because this will then throw off the flow. Because if scanner has to head upstairs, now another player needs to grab scanner and be the call-out person. Now, even though it's not hard, practice makes perfect, and 1 simple mistake will wipe the team. Also, one thing to note, the downstairs team will sometimes have to do damage with only 2 players, as of course one of them will be taking the orb upstairs. Now, it's no big deal, swords are more than powerful enough to take it out, and 1 player can actually take care of a boss by themselves if need be. However, you want at least 2 for max damage. The main thing here is to be sure that the scanner buff gets back into the transfer machine as fast as possible, and each scanner user needs to be at the machine ready to pick it up when it is available. The faster you can make this part happen, the easier the flow of the entire fight, as it gives you plenty of time to set up and identify the boss and do damage. Now, if you have a bad internet connection, do not become the scanner user. The yellow glow glitches a lot, and it won't show up on one of the bosses until a few seconds after the animation has started, which then causes confusion because you don't see it, so you run to the 4th boss, but however, it's not on the 4th boss because it just glitched out. You end up doing the wrong damage and you wipe. It's a pain in the ass, but it definitely happens. Both upstairs and downstairs are really doing the exact same thing. You're just finding the correct boss, collapsing as a team, then downing the boss, putting the scanner into the transfer machine, and then spacing the orb after the bosses drop. You simply rinse and repeat that. Now, if you start this encounter and your bosses are in their animation before you are even able to grab the scanner from the machine, you need to make sure the other team members remember to deposit the scanner immediately after damage. You can get away with a few seconds, but don't push it. Like I mentioned, the faster you get that scanner back into the transfer machine, the faster the other team can get ready. During contest mode, it took us 3 phases due to the damage increase, but now it can be done in 2 easily. So with that phase out of the way, let's talk about the final one, the last stand. Now in total, you're going to be damaging 6 bosses leading up to this. 3 downstairs, 3 upstairs, and then the round resets. That's one phase. Once you get to this line here, it's time for final damage, in which everyone then needs to book it upstairs. So the operator, like I said earlier, needs to send down 2 additional rocket pods, 3 in total, so they are all ready to go. That way everyone can just simply jump into a pod and head upstairs when they need to. Again, simply shoot the keypad as an operator to call the pods up or down. Now, if you hit this line and the scanner buff is upstairs, you want to keep it upstairs. If you hit this line downstairs, do not bring the scanner buff with you in the rocket pod. You want to complete your cycle, guys, so be sure to put the scanner back in the transfer machine before using the pod, as the scanner upstairs has to identify the first final damage boss ASAP. When all of this happens, do not forget your normal mechanics of the boss that you just killed to get to final stand. During this last portion, the operator will not be doing damage, as number 1, it's not needed, and number 2, they need to focus on those orbs. The player who brings the last soul orb up the lift needs to do the normal mechanic and finish things with the operator of spacing it out the airlock, while the rest of the team then starts doing the final stand damage. Now, some guides will tell you that you can juggle this orb around, and while you can, it's just unnecessary. You don't need that many people. Just get rid of it instead of juggling it around. Makes life much easier. Once it's spaced, you can then rejoin the final stand damage part if you wish. So during this final phase, all bosses are going to teleport upstairs. That's going to be 8 in total, and all 8 of them will be scattered around, plus the main boss, whose health is being damaged. Upstairs scanner will identify the bosses in which you need to kill. However, just like earlier, there will only be 1 at a time. The way we did it was to simply follow the scanner, as callouts become crazy at this point, and since you're running in every direction, left and right are relative to you. Also, like I mentioned, it only takes 1 or 2 people to drop a boss with a sword. So instead of being a damage dealer, you can go around and collect the soul orbs if you wish. How you do this final phase, completely up to you and your team. And yeah, that's about it, Guardians. It might seem like a lot to take in, but once you see the cadence, the kind of flow of this fight, it makes it much easier. And with contest mode off, you're going to be able to kill everything faster and take more shots while exposed. So don't worry, you guys absolutely got this. The upstairs team is doing the exact same job as downstairs team. Only difference is the operator spacing the orbs, which I shown you earlier. Operator keeps the augment the entire time. Now, if operator dies, have 1 person pick it up off the ground and then put it into the transfer machine so it does not despawn. Revive the operator, and then they can go collect it from the transfer machine. Again, once an augment, or buff as I call them, goes into the transfer machine, you can pick up that same augment from any area, both upstairs and downstairs. So, for instance, if you put the scanner buff, say, into the machine upstairs on the left, you do not have to pick it up on the left machine downstairs. You can grab it from any of the 3 terminals that are there. However, I always recommend to grab it from the middle terminal. That way you're closest, to all 4 bosses. But deposit it back into whichever terminal is closest to the boss you just killed. That saves time and allows the scanner who gets it next to get to where he needs to be faster. Don't worry about Titan Bubbles or Warlock Wells here, as damage really is not the issue. It's the callouts and the speed of the scanners. If you need a well to survive, then by all means go for it. Ad clearing supers are more useful here, as the servitors are a bit tanky. So yeah, anyways, that's about it, y'all. Quite a bit to take in. However, you totally got this. You're simply using the knowledge from the first encounter, but just in a different way. Give it a few runs, and if you have any questions, definitely comment down below. After y'all beat this, you will see one of the most spectacular jumping puzzles Bungie has created, at least in terms of skybox imagery wise. It's not really a jumping puzzle, more like a tour via traversal, but anyways, it's beautiful. However, now let's dive into team composition, weapon and armor mods, and then we'll go over room and its layout, and finally set everything into motion and check out the mechanics. So with that, let's begin. Starting with team composition, this is really all about staying alive, chaining supers, and clearing ads. Warlock, well. If you have 4 Warlocks, well then 1 can go Nova if you wish, but the well is going to be your best friend here. Luna, also great, but I would recommend Phoenix chest piece in order to get your super back faster, as you will need it as soon as possible. Hunters tether Top Tree with Orpheus rigs, or Stasis with Duskville Grenade. Blade Barrage can also be a useful subclass if you wish to change things up. Titans, bubble all the way. Now I was using Stasis, but that's because this was day 1 and we're still experimenting. As you'll see with the other Titans, they use bubble and literally kept us alive. Saint 14 helmet, also pretty clutch here as well. As for weapons, this encounter is not about damage, but rather clearing adds and kind of taking damage. So swords work very well here, specifically Guillotine due to its void damage, and of course the adds have void shields. For secondary, there are a couple of options you can go, but Risk Runner absolutely destroys for this encounter because you're always taking arc damage, and I highly recommend it. Shotguns, Telesto, or an Energy Scout with overload rounds. For primary, use what you wish, but again, shotguns are great if you're using an Energy Scout, but I went with my trusty old hand cannon with major spec. If you want to switch things up, you can also go the Anarchy or Xeno route. Anarchy in particular is pretty effective as you can set traps by the spawn points. Totally up to you and your team and what you think will do best. For mods, again, Protective Light with stacks on stacks are supercharged, Lucent Blade works well for the overload, and the Yellow Bar Captains are servitors. There are also raid mods that have been dropping as well, so set yourself up with those if you have them. Moving on to room layout, this area is pretty small, but there are several things you need to be aware of. First, let's talk about the deposit chests. Now, during this encounter, you're going to have to deposit nuclear cores into these containment chests. Standing in the middle from where you enter, there will be 2 chests to your left and 2 chests to your right. Where Taniks is standing, that's the front of the room. The entrance is the rear or the back of the room. Next, nuclear cores. There are 4 machines that can spawn these nuclear cores. 2 of them are directly above you in the rally flag, and then there will be 1 on each side along the far wall. So basically there's going to be 2 on left, 2 on right. You'll see them spawn in by the icon that announces their arrival. Next, we have a new augment to consider. In the past few encounters, we've had to work with Operator and Scanner. However, now a third gets thrown into the mix. It's light or baby blue color and goes by the name of Suppressor. Now, Scanner and Operator, they pretty much stay the same. Scanner highlights objects, Operator interacts with objects, and suppresses, well, it suppresses. Within this room, you're going to see 3 floating spheres. These kind of round, bot-looking things will have a rally flag circle below them. Unfortunately, I wasn't a suppressor and I didn't do that job, so I don't have the best footage of it, but I will show you how it works. Suppressor, they have to stand within the circle to get suppressor rounds. To suppress the boss, all it takes is 1 single shot. All you have to do is shoot 1 round from the circle and then move on to the next circle. So basically, you stand in the first circle on the far right hand side, shoot the boss. Stand in the middle circle, shoot the boss, finally move on to the third and final circle, and then shoot the boss 1 more time. I mean, even 1 round from a sidearm will do at 100 yards. So it doesn't really matter what you use here, they will all work. But once you stand in that third and final circle, the last shot, that will then officially stun the boss. Once you do, this stun allows nuclear cores to be deposited. Until the boss is stunned, the chests will stay offline. So Suppressor has a pretty important job from here on out. In order to know where to deposit these nuclear cores, scanners will have to call out which chests are highlighted, and Operator will have to spawn the cores by shooting the glowing terminals. Again, take some time to learn this room and all of the mechanic placements. It will make things much easier. Also, be sure to know where the transfer machines are located. Now, you will need to partner up for this fight because another new mechanic gets introduced here as well. Once a boss is stunned, on that third suppressor shot, 1 of 3 augments will deactivate. Now, the only way you can continue using the augment, or buff as I call them, is to insert it into the transfer machine and then your partner or another player picks it up. So designate 1 player for each augment: Scanner, Operator, and Suppressor. Each player will need a teammate as a backup. So you will basically be staying in the center the entire time, and technically you're in 3 teams of 2. Alright, so now that you have 3 teams of 2, you have everybody picking up an augment, let's set everything into motion and walk through the different steps. Now the idea here, pretty simple. You clear waves of adds, and then each of the designated players will pick up 1 of the augments. The scanner will call out which 2 chests the cores need to be deposited into. In order to spawn these cores, the operator will need to shoot the machines to spawn them. Again, look for the keypad and you'll know which one to use. While this is going on, the suppressor will be hopping around from bot to bot, shooting 1 round from each location. On the third and final bot circle, that last shot will then officially stun the boss. Stunning the boss allows the nuclear cores to be deposited. Even though you might have the nuclear cores at the correct chest, it will stay offline until the boss is stunned, so be on the lookout for that. Now, while all this is happening, the 3 players in the middle are going ham on some ads. Keep popping wells and bubbles as much as possible, as you will be taking a ton of fire here. Yellow bar captains and overload captains will spawn and try to rush you, so take them out ASAP and then focus on the others. If you get a free second from the onslaught, look up. Shanks will be flying and raining fire down above you. They're quite annoying in groups, so take them out as well. Now, this encounter is really fairly easy, but quite hectic. The key here is simply timing. While the 3 augment players are doing their job, you will need to designate 2 other players to pick up nuclear cores. Of course, since Scanner is only looking at chests, they can be one of those players. Also, Operator only has to shoot the little keypads to spawn the nuclear cores, so they can help out with ads as well while they're doing that. In an emergency, and if need be, they could also go out and pick up cores, again because their job is finished. So to start the encounter, wait for the ads and then pop a well. Call out where each augments are located in terms of where they spawn from and then pick them up. Once it's time, the scanner will call out which 2 chests are selected. Again, call outs here are fairly simple. You have something like, front left, front right, back right. Of course, front is where Taniks is located, back of the room is where you entered. Again, only the player holding the scanner augment will see which 2 chests are highlighted. The other players will need to trust their call out. Once some of the ads are taken care of and thinned out, the operator will let the 2 designated core walkers know when they need to get in position. Once the cores show up, simply pick them up and then head towards the middle. As all of this is going on, the suppressor player will be jumping from circle to circle or bot to bot, shooting Taniks, and on the 3rd and final shot will stun him. Stunning Taniks allows the nuclear cores to be deposited into the previously called out chests. At the same time though, an augment will deactivate, so make sure you look at the bottom left hand side of your screen to make sure you're not that player. If you are, you need to call it out, put it in the transfer machine, and have your partner pick it up. Now, because of the distance between bots, it might take a little bit for the suppressor to officially stun the boss, especially since ads are going to be shooting at them as well, so timing is everything, and the players holding the nuclear cores will start taking something called radiation damage. At times 10, they die and the core is then dropped. If the core does not get picked up within 6 seconds, it blows and wipes the team. So if the suppressor augment player is hung up and can't stun the boss, the core walkers will then need to pass the core off to another player. Again, scanner and operator along with their partner will be doing the passing. So be ready to grab the cores from your partner and then insert the core when the boss is finally stunned and then the chest opens up. Once the cores are deposited, more ads will then spawn in. Again, pop wells and bubbles to stay alive. All you have to do is repeat that cycle of depositing cores 6 times. Once you do, a hatch will open up on the floor, and then it's a mad dash to a sort of nuclear bunker safe room. If you lag behind, Taniks will catch up, and you'll be locked out, but definitely one of the coolest transitions in any of the Destiny raids. But yeah, that's about it, Guardians. 10 times easier than Atrax was on day 1 contest mode, and with it off, even easier. Learn these mechanics well because all of these will be put to the test on the final boss phase, Taniks Phase 2. Anyways, that's it, Guardians. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, be sure to comment down below. There are plenty of knowledgeable raiders that can answer your questions, and of course, if I see it, I'll be sure to answer as well. Alright, well, with nuclear disaster averted, it is time to take out Exo Shank Taniks. Everything that we've talked about, from the very first encounter to the 3rd, will now come into play here. However, even though there's a lot to do with the augments, this encounter is actually fairly easy for an end game, end raid boss fight. So regardless of what you might have seen or heard, you definitely got this. Okay, so enough talk, let's get this bad boy started. So for team makeup, once again, Nighthawk is king, hunters put on Golden Gun, and Nighthawk exotic helmet. If you have a bunch of hunters, feel free to use stasis or tether for ad control. As with all boss DPS encounters, Titans go for bubble, Warlocks use well. If for any reason you have problem with ad control, feel free to switch over to ad clearing supers like Stasis or Tickle Fingers, Dawnblade, etc. Damage buffs of course always help, but really aren't needed for this fight. However, they of course will make things go by faster. If you have acquired any raid mods, be sure to put them on as they help out quite a bit. Augment mods are pretty damn powerful, especially Operator, but all of them are nice. As for weapons, there are really a couple of different routes you can go here. Now, the current best setup believe it or not, are shotguns. Chaperone works very nicely, as does the seasonal exotic duality. First in, last out with Vorpal and Boss Spec along with Anarchy seems to be the best combination and the most powerful setup. However, my current favorite, just in terms of DPS and having fun, is Cloud Strike with Spike Grenade, Boss Spec Grenade Launcher. If you have a Void Heavy Grenade Launcher, then that would be best for taking out captains, but any will really do. You can also use Adored, slapping on triple tap with Vorpal and Boss Spec, and then use Anarchy for your heavy. If you don't have Anarchy and for some reason cannot buy it at this time, Xenophage will also work. One thing that is key for damage here, especially for the shotgun strategy, you want one person with Divinity. That is huge, especially if you're using the slug shotguns. For some reason, the Divinity bubble will appear underneath Taniks, and it glitches out all of the time. If you don't see a Divinity bubble pop up underneath him, just shoot about a foot under Taniks' scooter. You'll still see numbers appear, even though it looks like you're not shooting anything. I highly recommend Cloud Strike, as it's not only a ton of fun to use, but pretty damn powerful as well. It helps with DPS and taking out the thrusters from far away. But again, you can do all of this with Anarchy and a shotgun setup as well. So totally up to you and your team, as all of these recommendations work. But currently, in terms of best damage, Vorpal Shotgun, Anarchy combo with Bubble, Well, and using a Stasis Freezing Grenade to get that damage boost, all stacking up in your favor. Now personally, I've been liking a Sniper Rifle over a shotgun, even though it does less damage. But again, totally up to you. With team composition and weapons out of the way, let's talk about placement, and then we'll learn the map. So from where you see the rally banner looking out to the arena, you can notice 3 distinct zones. At each zone, one of the 3 augments will spawn. The rally area right underneath you has the operator spawn point. The zone in the middle has the scanner. The entrance to the Deepstone Crypt area has the suppressor spawn. Once again, just like the last encounter, this fight deals with nuclear cores, and the best way to label the chests are as follows. Looking from the rally banner, each area has 2 deposit chests. So from where you're standing right here, it's simply 1 through 6 clockwise. This first area, where the operator spawns, has 1 and 2. Where scanner spawns is 3 and 4. The entrance area, where suppressor spawns, is 5 and 6. Pretty simple. In case you're wondering what I mean about entrance, if you haven't noticed, this is actually the entrance to the Deepstone Crypt that you went into in the very beginning of the raid right after the Sparrow challenge. It's just wrecked up since the explosion. Next, let's locate the suppressor bots. Each area is going to have 3 of those bots, just like the last encounter. It's best to use them from left to right, as that's the shortest path and best way to keep the flow and timing similar between damage phases. Speaking of augments, just as a quick refresher, Scanner will need to locate and call out which 2 chests are glowing. This is where you deposit the nuclear cores. Suppressor buff will have to stand underneath the suppressor bots and then shoot Taniks once from each bot. On the 3rd shot, it will stun Taniks, and that also allows the cores to be deposited by the core runners. Remember, on boss stun, one of the 3 augments will deactivate. You never know which one it's going to be, and we'll talk about how to deal with that next. And finally, Operator has a brand new job. Instead of locating data pads or keypads and shooting them, Taniks will randomly lock out people in this kind of purple web looking thing. Operator has the job of shooting the web to break them out. You cannot shoot yourself out this time around, only Operator can do that. Now you don't have to be close, so again, snipers work great for this job, as does a primary scout rifle or even a hand cannon. Alright, so with that information out of the way, let's set everything into motion, and then we'll talk about how things work. So first, guys, you need to break up into 3 groups of 2. Operators stay at the rally banner location, the 2 scanners will be in the middle area, and the suppressor groups at the entrance. Shoot the debris pile to start things off. Now once you do, Taniks the scooter stealer will fly around and annoy you with rockets while ads spawn in, usually from the left and the right. Burn them down by cornering them as soon as they spawn in with grenades, a sword, Anarchy, whatever you want to use. If you're running Cloud Strike, you can use a grenade launcher or a sword and just cut everything down instantly. After a few rounds of ads, the augments will start to come out. Take them down and then designate who's going to be grabbing them first. You'll also want to designate core runners as well. Scanner team will always be one of those teams because they can do both easily. So scanner team will take one core, and then one person from the operator team and one person from the suppressor team will make up the second core running team. The reason the second core running team is made up from one of each is because suppressor and operator cannot grab cores due to their jobs. If they carry a core, they cannot shoot people out of the detainment nets, and suppressor has to shoot Taniks to stun him. So be sure to set all of this up right before you start the boss fight. The instant scanner team has their augment, they need to call out which chests are glowing. Again, it's 1 through 6, left to right, starting at the rally flag. Typing it in chat will help out a lot if you can juggle that. After all of the ads are taken care of, you have a little bit of a pause, and then Taniks will kind of light up his thrusters. There are 4 of them in total, but you're going to want to focus on 2 only. If Taniks is looking directly at you, you want to start shooting the back thrusters out first as they get in the way later on, and it just makes things easier next time. So everyone shoot the back 2 thrusters. It only takes a few shots with a sniper to do so. While this happens, Taniks will be raining down these purple jets at your location. Even in a Warlock well or a Titan bubble, it will kill you, so if you see the purple, move out of the way. Sometimes you'll only be targeted once and then left alone. Other times it's back to back to back, while other players won't even get targeted at all. So space it out and just keep moving. You don't have to run here, just walk left or right constantly while ADS. So once the 2 thrusters are popped, a core from each of them will drop to the ground. You want to be halfway close to Taniks while shooting the thrusters just for this reason. You can make it easy and also designate who's going to pick up the cores first, but totally up to you. You only have 6 seconds to grab these cores before they blow and wipe the team. Scanner team and the other team will call out who deposits in which chest. Now, to make things easy here, I always had it so scanner team will always be depositing the highest number chest. So for instance, if the callouts are chest 1 and chest 6, scanner team will always deposit in chest 6. This will allow the other team a little bit of an easier time. Now, as the cores are being walked to their chest destinations, 2 things have to happen here. Number 1, suppressor has to go to the side where Taniks is at and hop from suppressor bot to suppressor bot, shooting Taniks to stun him. Now, you're going to want to stun him as soon as possible, because just like the last encounter, when you stun, one random augment will deactivate. You never know if it's going to be operator, scanner, or suppressor. If you wait to stun the boss when the team are at their deposit chests, they are tucked away behind objects and around corners. So if operator has to make it to the center of the map or jump up high in order to get a shot to free a team trapped, and then suppressor stuns Taniks so the core runners can deposit, if operator is the one who's deactivated, they cannot shoot and have to run all the way back to a machine from the middle of the map. Their partner has to pick up, run back to the middle so they can get a shot. If you stun Taniks as soon as possible, this will put players somewhat in the middle of the map in a much easier location to shoot from far away. Also, away from the ads and captains who spawn by the chests, and everyone will have less radiation stacks on top of it, so you have time to actually swap out to begin with. If operator gets unlucky and is the one who's deactivated, they have to deposit operator into this transfer machine ASAP, and then they now have to become core runner. Their partner will switch with them. The teams who are grabbing the cores need to do the following. First, jump hop. It's faster than walking. Number 2, have your teammates stay close to you while running the core, but not so close that if you get trapped, they're trapped as well. Because again, if you're operator's partner, you might need to switch in an instant. And if you're trapped, someone else who hasn't planned on grabbing operator will now have to save the day, and then that just throws everything else out of balance. So stay close, but not too close. Also, don't try to risk it. You take radiation poisoning from carrying these nuclear cores. So always swap it out when you reach times 7 or so. This will give you time to get close to your partner and enough time to swap it over with time to spare just in case something happens. The core running teams will have to defend one another as well. If you're running the core, hop to the chest while your partner stays close and defends you from ads. If you switch, then again you have to defend the core runner. Once both core runner teams get to the chest, simply deposit, and that's 1 round. You do this twice, and then it's damage phase. If scanner becomes deactivated, it's easy. Simply just swap scanner to your partner. Your roles will stay the same. You will always be running cores and doing scanner. If suppressor deactivates, your suppressor partner then will have to grab it, and then the original suppressor who started things off will need to now become part of the second core running team. Now, it kind of takes a bit to get into the swing of things when it comes to switching, but you have plenty of time here, and it's pretty easy. Just be sure you know where every transfer machine is located. After 2 rounds of running cores, Taniks will show up in the middle. So what you want to do here is meet either at the rally flag area or the entrance to do damage. The entrance area is flat, so that's a really good place to do it, while the rally flag area is kind of downhill and on uneven ground. So as soon as you see Taniks throw up a debris field, be careful of the swirling debris and then make your way inside the bubble. Now you cannot get too close to Taniks as you will take damage and die really quickly. And we all know why this is here. It's simply to stop swords from making this too easy. So what you want to do is pop a bubble, throw down a well, throw a stasis grenade for added damage. Chuck out 6 rounds of anarchy if you're using it, and then switch over to a shotgun or sniper. Halfway through, you're going to get booped out of the field. Now the easiest way to get back in immediately is just to jump up and over the debris, because the debris only swirls on ground level. You can jump over it safely every single time instead of trying to slide through it. However, completely up to you. Once the damage round is done, you either move on to final stand or you have to repeat running the cores. Now as for final stand, guys, final stand is super easy. Simply throw down a well or a bubble if you have them, and then you have to continually do damage to Taniks while he teleports around. You'll also get blasted by those purple beams again, so keep it moving while you do damage. And this is where snipers really come in handy, as by the time you try to get close with a shotgun, he'll end up teleporting away. Use anarchy from a distance if you have ammo left over, and then just snipe his head. Remember, during damage, that divinity will glitch out, and sometimes you will not be able to see the bubble or shield that appears underneath. So just simply shoot a foot underneath Taniks, as you see here in the video, and you'll hit it every single time. Be sure to pulse divinity, do not hold the trigger. This will let your team shoot for a longer amount of time. Once you reach final stand, just snipe and grenade launch your way to victory, and that's really it, my friends. Taniks is totally easy once you get the augments down. Damage is never the issue here. It's always figuring out the flow of the buffs or the augments. So yeah, that's it, Guardians. Those are all the encounters within the Deepstone Crypt. I hope that this guide not only gets you your first clear, but that all of the steps were easy to follow. Again, the footage and recommendations you see here are from the first few days this raid was out. Now, I try to create the best strats and recommendations possible at that time, but sometimes you don't notice certain things until the few runs in. You can't catch what you don't know, so just be aware that as the meta solidifies, things may change from what you see here. Anyways, I'm out, y'all. Once again, thank you for watching another Planet Destiny Deepstone Crypt raid guide, and thank you so much for watching. Keep those eyes open for more Planet Destiny guides, reviews, and videos, but until then, this is your dude Sly, and I'll see you all next time.